Hey there, welcome everybody. So today we're going to go over the new set for the Wizard in patch 2.2, the Delsere's Magnum Opus. Let's get right into it with what the set does. So the 2-set bonus, casting Arcane Orb, Energy Twister, Magic Missile, or Shock Pulse reduces the cooldown of slow time by 2 seconds. So right off the bat you can kind of see that it's a slow time set. The 4-set bonus, enemies affected by your slow time take 2000% weapon damage every second. And then the 6-set bonus, enemies affected by your slow time take 750% more damage from your Arcane Orb, Energy Twister, Magic Missile, and Shock Pulse abilities. So, pretty much just want to make sure that everything is within our slow time as much as possible, because our other abilities are going to deal more damage to those enemies affected by the slow time. In the video, we're going to run Frozen Orb, the Arcane Orb rune, and we're going to run the new revamped Triumvirate to buff it even more, so it's dealing over a billion, sometimes 1.5 to 2 billion damage on crits. Let's take a look at the abilities. Now keep in mind, this is just one viable way to build this set. There are many others depending on what route you want to take. First off, we have Magic Missile, Glacial Spike. Now I like this quite a bit because it's cold damage. We're going to be stacking cold damage on our gear, and it also gives us some nice added utility of freezing every now and again, especially against elites and champions. There are other Magic Missiles that will deal more damage if you want to go that route. Now, it'll also proc our Focus and Restraint combo, and it's going to proc the Triumvirate to then buff our Arcane Orb as well. So Arcane Orb, Frozen Orb. Create an Orb of Frozen Death that shreds an area with Ice Bolts, dealing 393% weapon damage as cold. Again, it's going to be our main damaging ability. It's relatively short range, it's kind of like a mid-range spell, so you're not going to be at max range all the time with it, but it's going to do a ton of damage. Like I said before, you're going to see it critting for 1.5 to 2 billion at times. Energy Armor, Force Armor. Incoming attacks that would deal more than 35% of your max life are reduced to deal 35% of your max life instead. The amount absorbed cannot exceed 100% of your max life. Really nice damage reduction there from that ability. Black Hole, Absolute Zero. This is going to proc our Strong Arm Bracers, and then it also has the added effect of each enemy hit increases the damage of your cold spells by 3% for 10 seconds. So obviously the more enemies we hit, the more damage we're going to get out of it, so you want to try to maximize that as much as you can. Slow Time Exhaustion. Since we're not running the Wizard hat that gives us all of the slow time runes, this is the one that I like the best, especially since we're not running a Unity combo. Enemies caught by slow time deal 25% less damage. Really nice damage reduction there. Running Magic Weapon Conduit. So we're going to get 10% increased damage out of this, and then also enemies hit by your attacks restore up to 3 arcane power. Now you could run potentially some other abilities here to get arcane power back, but you do need to run something like this, because you want to be spamming Frozen Orb as much as possible. Obviously you're going to cast Magic Missile to keep the Focus and Restraint going, and then also the Triumvirate going, but you're going to want to be casting Arcane Orb as much as you possibly can. We're running Glass Cannon, increases all damage done by 15%, but decrease armor resistances by 10%, just a straight up damage buff there. Astral Presence for more arcane power, Unstable Anomaly for our second life, and then Blur for just a straight up damage reduction. Alright, let's take a look at the gear. As far as Delsere's pieces go, we have the boots with Arcane Orb damage, the pants with Vitality Armor in 2 sockets, the chest piece with Vit Armor in 3 sockets, the helmet, which you want crit chance and Arcane Orb damage there, that's very important, and then you also want a socket. You could go a cooldown reduction gem, but I think that the life percentage is much better. We don't have the damage mitigation that Tal Rasha's does with this set, and that is a lot of life. As far as the shoulders go, Int Vitality Life Percentage Armor. The gloves, Int Vitality Crit Damage, Crit Chance. You could go attack speed over the Vitality, but again, without much damage mitigation, I think the Vitality roll is better. As far as Amulet, really any Amulet will do as long as it has cold damage, Crit Chance, and a socket. Strong Arm Bracers with cold damage and Crit Chance, and this will be procced by Black Hole. Then we have Focus and Restraint, so the Restraint there, and then the Focus. The first 2-piece will be procced by Magic Missile, and the second 2-piece will be procced by our Arcane Orb. We've got the Witching Hour with attack speed and crit damage, and then we've got the Triumvirate. This is really important, really the build doesn't work without it. Your signature spells, which is our Magic Missile, increase the damage of Arcane Orb by 92%, which that damage range is between 75 and 100, for 6 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. So it's important to keep these 3 stacks going at all times, because it's really going to amplify your damage. And obviously you do want one that's ancient. This is kind of holding me back currently with the build. You want to make sure that it has crit chance and Arcane Orb damage for sure, and then probably a Vitality roll would be better than the resource cost reduction there. But yeah, an ancient one is what you really want. As far as the weapon, we've got an Utar's Roar. Now there are about 4 weapons that could work in this build and all work very effectively. This one is going to be the easiest to get ancient because it's craftable. So, you know, at around 10 or so crafts, you should be able to get an ancient one. You know, obviously with RNG, you may get one sooner, you may get one later, but it should average out to about 10 crafts before you get an ancient one. And it always rolls cold damage, which is really nice. We'll go over 3 other weapons here in just a minute that are potential options for the build. As far as legendary gems go, Bane of the Trapped, we're going to be slowing things pretty much all the time, so really good, pretty high uptime on this legendary gem. We're running the Zai's Stone of Vengeance. Even though we're not at max range very often, we may only be getting about half of the damage out of it. The 20% chance on hit to stun the enemy for 1 second is extremely important for the build and survivability, in my opinion. There are other gems here that you could run, play around with it and see if you like something better. I like the Zai's Stone still. As far as the last gem goes, I'm currently running the Esoteric Alteration. For a while I was running Gem of Efficacious Toxin for more damage, but I decided since, you know, we don't have a lot of mitigation in the build, that getting this extra all resist is extremely good, and ended up being way better because I was just dying a little bit too much with the Gem of Efficacious Toxin before. So I like this. Again, play around with the build. If you decide you like something else, then run it. This is what I like currently with this setup. Another option is the Season 3 Legendary Gem, the Ice Blink. Your cold skills now apply chill effects, and your chill effects now slow enemy movement by an additional 25%. And then gain 10% increased critical hit chance against chilled and frozen enemies. Now I'm not playing in Season 3 on the PTR currently, so I have not had a chance to test this. This is something you mess around with and see if you like it. It could potentially be really good, and maybe even with the cold-blooded passive that the wizards have, since you'd be chilling enemies much more often at that point. 3 other potential weapon options are the Gesture of Orpheus. It always rolls with reduces the cooldown of slow time by a percentage now, and I'm not really sure how necessary this is, simply because whenever you cast Arcane Orb or Magic Missile with the 2-piece Delseres, it's going to reduce the cooldown of slow time by 2 seconds already. But with that said, I mean, the more you can cast slow time, the better. It could definitely be a nice utility thing to have. And it also always rolls with an element damage now, so obviously for this build you want it to roll cold damage. The Azure Wrath is probably my favorite option. It always rolls cold damage as well, but it also has the added benefit of a chance to freeze on hit, and a pretty high chance at that, which is going to give you a lot more crowd control along with the damage. That's my favorite. The Undead, the extra damage to Undead enemies really isn't all that big of a deal. It's not that relevant for the build. And then the third one is the Wizard Spike. Now, I don't really think this one is all that great, but it could be a nice starter weapon for this build. Performing an attack has a 22% chance to hurl a frozen orb. It sounds much better on paper than it actually is. From the testing that I've done with it, it doesn't actually proc all that often. I don't know if it has an internal cooldown or what. I'm assuming it does, but you really don't see it proc as much as you would think it would at 22% chance. As always guys, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.